tear it down. You get right up and tear it down. You tear it down. You get right up and tear it down.
Welcome to Sidetracked with your hosts, Scott Culbertson and Bo Hotchkiss of the band Blue Vino. Please be calm and tear it down.
You get right up and tear it down. You tear it down. You get right up and tear it down.
All right. Welcome to the show, everybody.
It's your voiceover of the intro that I have a problem with.
You have. There's always something. You'll always pick something.
I'll get back to you on that though. So.
All right. So we're going to start off. We're going to let John on the air right now. John, you are live.
Thank you, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Loud and clear.
Thanks for showing up, man. Appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah,
we're glad to be here.
What are
we talking about? What are we talking about tonight?
I just wanted to say I saw your ad, and I thought it was great, and I want to know if you're going to run as an independent.
No, I don't think I am. I'm,
No?
I think that would be a futile thing to do at this point.
Right.
Are you gonna stick with the Libertarian Party?
Of course, yes.
Okay.
In fact, we have an initiative called Vote Different, which is an outreach to the down ticket candidates, at the local and state level, where we're going to be helping as much as we can. I believe that the Libertarian Party is making a mistake by legitimately trying to win this presidential nomination. I just don't think it's going to happen. And yet on the local level, we can really do something. We can actually get candidates elected and make some real change in America. Right.
Oh yeah, definitely on a local level. We just had a libertarian congressional candidate from Indiana on our last episode. Hopefully she gets some votes. That would be nice. But speaking of the votes particularly, one of the major questions that I wanted to ask you, being in the tech industry, I would think maybe this is a question that would be better handled by somebody like you. Namely, it's how we get people like yourself elected when it's pretty well known that the voting machines and really all the elections are so riggable. But most specifically, I want to give you an example, and this is on the legal record. Clint Curtis, who is a programmer, he testified that he developed a bootloader-style hack, which, as demonstrated by students from Princeton University, could be loaded into a voting machine in about a minute and then altering the results from the machine. And the only way to know that it's wrong is if they did a paper ballot in concert with it, which nobody does.
Yes. That's correct. Of course. There's nothing. Go ahead.
Well, the only thing I was going to add was that there's only two corporations that are allowed to count the votes, which is basically a duopoly. But how do we, as the people, tackle something this heinous and, to me it's obviously so easily rigged?
Well, I think we need to realize we're just not ready for electronic voting. We're not. The world of cybersecurity is, if it's shown us one thing at all, it's that there's nothing that cannot be hacked. I mean, the Chinese walked off with 2 million records from the Office of Personnel Management, including all of our top secret cleared agents overseas. 2 15-year-old kids hacked into the FBI and got the names, addresses, fingerprints, and photographs of every undercover agent that the FBI has. I mean, if we can do that, if kids can do that, if this is possible, then you know that these voting machines can just as easily be hacked. We're just not ready. We don't have the cybersecurity facilities in place in this day and age to prevent wide-scale voter fraud. And you're absolutely right. The fact that this is controlled by 2 companies makes it even easier for hackers to get into. They know their targets.
Right.
So I think that I don't think we're ready. I don't think it should happen. And I've said that over and over. It's one thing if some undercover agents get outed, that the FBI should have, done something to put those files on paper or get them off of electronic systems. But it's another thing when our government can be co-opted by a group of hackers. And they may be 15-year-old kids. You don't know.
Now, if we try to narrow that down to who's the culprit, now I don't mean the hackers. I mean, how in the world could they have gotten in? Because everybody believes, or at least I shouldn't say everybody, but the majority of Americans, when you watch the film industry, they believe the government is this whole, this entity that has amazing capabilities and they have the best security and they have the top of the line everything. But is that the case?
No, of course it's not. I think last year proved it. Last year was the year of all years for government hacks, people getting into the Office of Personnel Management, the FBI, Homeland Security, the Pentagon. Almost every government agency was hacked by somebody. So clearly we are not what the government would like us to believe they are. And these voting machines are not simple devices. The more complex the software required to do something, the more holes you're going to have in it. This is just human nature. People make mistakes. No one is perfect. And as long as people are programming these things, then we will have imperfections in the software. And those imperfections will be found by someone who's looking hard enough. And then they will be like the kid that had a bootloader that could take control. Right.
So, so how do we tackle, as a people, this is a big question, I'm sorry to slam it at you, but how do we, as just a regular citizen, attempt to force the government to stop doing it that way?
We have to educate them. We have to make them aware of the risks. We have to let them know that
and pretty much do like the Libertarian party's doing is, get people out there and get people, noticed and elected, and to get in there and change it
at the lower level.
Yeah, and also to raise the alarm, like you're doing on this show right now. You're talking to someone who's had 50 years in computer technology, and I'm telling you, it is not possible to secure these machines. End of story. And to attempt to do it now. Maybe 10 or 15 years from now, when we have a better understanding of cybersecurity techniques and better techniques to detect intrusion, which we don't have now, then we could do it. But to do it now is a recipe for disaster.
Okay. Now, vaulting off of that, I'm kind of interested in your views about mass surveillance that's kind of already going on in that regard as well as whether or not it's even morally okay to do.
Well, of course it's not morally okay to do. Privacy is one of the foundations of freedom. Without privacy, there is no freedom. Because if someone knows everything about you, then suddenly you become easy to control. And you say we're becoming that way? No, we are that way. Go out and look at any street corner in any city and count the number of cameras that are watching you from stop signs.
I live in Vegas. We are the land of surveillance.
You guys
they're everywhere.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's not just Vegas. It's any large city in this country. So we have already reached that point. You can't put any more cameras. They're watching every square inch of everything. Yeah. inside and outside.
They're in the stores and the parking lots.
Yes.
You know,
So
there's a joke
already
going around. There's a joke going around with a little sticker they sell at one of those bathroom cameras are for research purposes only. And the kids run around and put these stickers in public restrooms all the time.
Well, here's another thing. There's a device that looks just like a coat hook that anybody can attach to a bathroom stall, and from up to 100 feet away can watch and listen to everything that happens in there. That was in the news just 2 days ago. And it's, these things, and this is not just the government surveillance. This is any kid can do it. Anybody can do it. We've reached the point where our technology has gotten out of our hands. It's escaped us,
right.
And we no longer have control over it. And we've got to get that control back, else we're going to be in a world of hurt.
Do you think it's reversible at this point regarding specifically what the government's doing? Because I think a lot of people would agree
Yes.
with you about the individual, but how in the hell do you reverse this mass government surveillance? You're talking about, like letting go all kinds of people. I don't even know what you do with all this technology. Do you just toss it?
No, you don't toss it. You use it and you augment it. I mean, my own company, MGT, which I just formed about a little over a month ago. It's on the New York Stock Exchange, and we're developing products to try to stem this tide. Using the hardware and software that's out there, by adding onto it, stitching things in, adding programs that defy any attempt by the government or anyone else to invade your privacy. We're working very hard on that. We already have a couple of them. We have one called Devasive, which runs on smartphones, and one called Demon Saw, which is a secure file sharing platform that it makes you completely anonymous. Now, the government doesn't like that. They do not want anonymity. But I have the right to anonymity. I have the right to go out without telling everybody who I am and showing them my ID. This is a fundamental right of humanity.
Yeah. And it's not even, you presenting or having to present ID. They are tracking you as you walk through the door, every item you touch, every item you look at. If you look at something for longer than 3 seconds, they ping on that and say, how can we get them to buy that?
Yes, absolutely. But that's one thing. Okay, I'm not worried about people trying to sell me things.
Which leads me to another question. You've had some experience dealing, working inside NASA and with Lockheed Martin. And I just want to know, how sinister do you think those people are?
Well, when I was working at Lockheed, and back then it wasn't Lockheed Martin, it was just Lockheed, I was working on black programs. Black programs are programs that, in theory, don't exist. They're working for the government, and they go black. My supervisor had no idea what I was saying. Nobody had any idea what I was doing except the secret agencies that I worked for within the government. And for all practical purposes, they do not exist. There's no record of them. My hours were assigned to a dummy job within Lockheed that did not exist.
So are you still bound by things you can't talk about? Right.
Absolutely. You're never unbound by them.
That's got to be tough.
Well, hang on.
It is, because
we actually have a question for you written about just this. It's a hypothetical, so you can't possibly get in trouble because it's kind of an opinion. So it's all right. Let's say I have a company that I'm starting, and I really want my confidentiality agreement to be just fucking more evil than Lockheed's. If my confidentiality agreement said that I would kill your family if you talked, would you say that my confidentiality agreement is more evil than theirs or not as evil as theirs?
I would say it's more evil, and that's kind of the confidentiality agreement that you sign, and it's not with Lockheed; it's with the U.S. government. When you get your top secret clearance and you're assigned to a black program, you're told basically that what you're working on.
This leads into another question. What are your thoughts about Snowden and how the things he's revealed and what he's not revealed. And do you think he's still on the payroll?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, is in fact Snowden on the payroll? This is the question. I mean, you never know with these covert agencies. Is Snowden a ploy, or is Snowden someone who really found something out and felt that the American people needed to know about it? I tend to believe the latter, that he found it out and he told us, and what he told us is pretty horrific. That the NSA, among other things, was spying on American citizens, which is way outside their charter. Way outside their charter. Their job is to, if they want to do any spying at all, it's outside our borders. But no, they're doing it inside the borders on us. We needed to know that. We did. And if he is legit, that he was an employee of Booz Allen and Hamilton, which is its history. And by the way, I worked at Booz Allen and Hamilton for many years. So if he was an employee of Booz Allen, he found this out and he alerted us and then ran. He's kind of a hero. He told me at least what I wanted to know.
Right.
Do you think
is it
we'll
something
ever get
more
to the bottom of it? Or
well,
what do you
it's
think
kind of
will
hard
happen?
to say because he's in Russia now. So obviously everything that's released is now under control of the Russian government. So it gets very complicated. From this point on, from the time, I don't know why he did that. He was in Hong Kong. He could have faded into the back alleys and with his talents have fared well. He chose to try to get to Ecuador, big mistake, stopped off in Russia where they latched onto him. So
now, Hong Kong is capitalist, correct?
Well, it's actually part of communist China, but it's still a very capitalistic sub-country. So, but it's still it would have been a very safe place for him.
It's
Russia. I'm sure everything
in itself.
I'm sorry. Pardon?
Hong Kong. It's one of those places. It's like a city-state within itself.
Well, it was leased by the British government for 399 years. Now, isn't that kind of bizarre? The lease expired 25 years ago, and it became an independent country.
Really?
And then was taken over by communist China. But it's still pretty independent. I mean, there's too much financial activities that are funneled through Hong Kong to curtail it too much.
Yeah.
Well, let's get. We got a couple other questions here. This one's a big one. I wanted to ask you some really hard questions that probably you're not going to hear on Fox News or CNN or MSNBC. There's a lot of heinous actions that run rampant that our own government is complicit to, and the media ignores it. There's conspired backroom deals. That's a real thing, and for people who are like, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. A conspiracy is just a group of people planning to do something illegal. If you don't think that happens, you're wrong. But on top of that, you've also got, drug kingpins running amok, and you have child sex slavery all over the place. How in the hell do we begin to combat these types of things as citizens when they're all in the shadows? How do you arrest these people? How do you stop it?
Well, you said that the media ignores it. I would take the other tack. I think that the media is complicit in it. Now, keep in mind, the world media is controlled by 6 companies. One of them, Viacom, is controlled by one man, Rupert Murdoch in Australia. Now, think about the power. Now, given that much power, there has to be complicity with the other power players in the world, like the world governments. You know this for a fact. Because, power tries to be cooperative, if at all possible, because you don't want to waste all of your resources fighting some other power. So I believe that the media is complicit in all of this. And that, for example, when things happen, when the government does something that's horrific, the media can blame somebody else but still tell a horrific story. Because really that's what people want to watch. Think about it. We don't watch grandma baking apple pies on the primetime news. No, we watch mayhem, chaos, murder, hurricanes, destruction, tragedy, suffering.
Yeah.
This is something very Yeah,
which
something
leads
very,
me to a
very-
recommendation. Political tactic is you should go full Game of Thrones towards the presidency. Honestly, just do it.
Okay, it is already Game of Thrones. I think that this is going to be the most bizarre year for politics that we have ever seen. I mean, already we have riots in the streets in San Jose where the police just stand by and watch people getting beaten up. What's going on there? Isn't that a question? Where there's anger and vitriolity and all kinds of ugliness. There's nothing sweet about this, nothing nice, nothing constructive, and nothing for the American citizens to look forward to. I think people are sort of waiting this out, dreading what may happen after November when somebody actually takes office. And no matter who it's going to be, we know it won't be the Libertarian candidate, no matter who it's going to be, one of these two people are still going to be a nightmare for America.
Right.
So
which flavor of nightmare?
Which flavor of nightmare do you want? They're both going to keep you up.
Yeah.
You're going to be shaking in the sheets in either case.
Well, one thing, I don't know if you've heard of this. I've been trying to spread this news left and right, especially over to all of any Twitter hashtags that deal with Hillary or anything. I have been posting this, the fact that Bill Clinton specifically has been known to fly to what's called Pedophile Island aboard Jeffrey Epstein's, quote, Lolita Express plane.
Right.
How in the hell are these people not in jail? How are they?
Well, I mean, first of all, you have to believe that story. And where do you hear that story? From the media. If the media is complicit in this fabrication of reality, then how do you ever get to the truth of anything? It's extremely difficult. It really is. Because these 6 companies will back themselves up in most things, because if it's a good story, well, that's a good story, isn't it? I mean, what better story could there be? That's a good story. How do you?
So you think it's just for entertainment? You don't think he's actually gone or been a pedophile?
No, I have no clue. I wasn't there. I don't know anybody who was there, other than what I see on TV, what I hear, and what I read in magazines, and hear or see on social media. In all of those cases, I doubt there's much truth to it. I mean, I know better than anyone, having had so much trash written about me, that there's very little truth in all the juicy stories that are out there.
Well, regarding the flight logs, they showed pictures of the flight logs. I suppose those could be fabrications, sure. Jeffrey Epstein did go to prison, only it was for a very short amount of time, and then he was on very short parole. It was basically a slap on the wrist. So, he was convicted, but this is how they treat them when they do get convicted, when they're this high up and when their ties are with people like the Clintons. They're like, well, you're all right. And it's like, no, these are people that would be tarred and feathered, 300 years ago.
Right, or if you're a member of a wealthy family and you're 20 years old and you rape an unconscious woman behind a dumpster, you're given 6 months and 3 months off for good behavior. Whereas if you're a black male from the wrong side of town, you're gonna get thrown in prison for life. So again, it's the privilege of money, the privilege of power, the privilege of who you know and what they know. So if this is the system we live in, we're going to have to get used to it.
Given that you were going for the presidency, that has a lot to do with it, economic. How would you go about tackling our economic problems right now? Fundamentals.
These problems, I think the economic problems are way below the problems of power, because as long as we have people in government who are seeking power and not service, it doesn't matter what the economy is going to look like.
What I mean by economics is the separation of wealth right now.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. I'm saying.
Because
you have to go to the source, which is the power, because if the power is there, doesn't matter what economic policies or procedures or practices you put in place, nothing will change. The powerful people will ensure that they get the lion's share. This is just the way of the world. So we have
Right.
to get those people out of the way. We have to see that these are the people who are destroying our country, our lifestyle, our security, our privacy, and our freedom. And let's get them the hell out, because we as people have enormous power. We have more power collectively than any government in the world if we will act together. All we got to do is step out of this political system and say we're not taking it anymore. I promise you it will collapse.
I like the way that you just said that, because I want to present to you an analogy that someone else said to me. Well, not to me, that I heard somewhere. And it's that the way that these people continue about their misdoings and how they break laws and do everything that they're doing is this is the greatest argument for the example that anarchy works that you've ever seen in the history of the world. Because while the common folk are delegated to follow laws, to follow the rules, to be under government, the people in government, they participate in agreements and dealings that have no written laws, that have no rules.
Yes.
They shake hands, they hope that it works, and if it doesn't, all that happens is word of mouth spreads, and then you don't trust that guy anymore. Not a law, it's not a punishment, it's just the fact that, hey, me and Jerry had a fallen through because we agreed to this, he didn't follow through, this happened, blah, 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 that's anarchy. That's not a law, it's not a rule, it's not a ruler either. It's just we agreed to this, he didn't, I spread the word, and what happens, happens.
Yes, that's it. And actually, that's what's happening in government. The government itself, the power, is operating on principles of anarchy. But we, the people, have to operate on principles of rule.
Which is why they are winning.
The ruler, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But they can only win if we let them. That's the absolute
Which
truth.
is, like you said, we need to step out of politics, get rid of
Completely.
that.
All of us.
Forget it.
All of us.
Let's do it the same way they're doing it. Yeah.
Yes. And then we have the power. Why? Because we have the numbers.
Exactly.
So and if you believe, by the way, because the only thing that the government has in order to enforce are their agents and ultimately the Army. If you believe that the U.S. Army will actually open fire on U.S. citizens on the behest of the powerful, it is not going to happen. I promise you.
See, I'm glad I'm not the only
happens.
one that says that.
No, this is what happens in all revolutions. The enforcement arm always sides with the people ultimately. Why? Because they're the ones that get they're the ones that have had to lose their lives, their limbs, their minds through wars that our government has forced them to fight in. Do you think that those guys have any great love of this system? I don't think so. I think they love the country. And what is the country? The country is us, the 400 million of us, not that tiny, tiny fraction that controls us.
Not to mention, people don't stop and think. The people that they would be asking them to go shoot and kill could very possibly be their own family members.
Yes.
Do you think a soldier is going to run down his grandma because some stranger general
he's not going to run down, and he's not going to run down another soldier's grandma. It's not happening. We know this.
That's why they'll use UN peacekeepers.
Yeah. Well, we still have our own soldiers.
And we have the we have the best soldiers. That's probably
we do. So I don't worry about that. So really, we ultimately have the power. We really do. And all of these fears about they're going to set up concentration camps in America and all these things. No, it ain't going to happen because our military simply will not do it. I mean, I've talked to soldiers. I have just in this past year more than ever.
Hey, John.
When they're in. Yes, sir.
Do you want to stay for the next 15 minutes? We're about to go into overtime. You're more than welcome to.
I'm afraid I can't, sir.
That's fine.
My apologies.
That's fine. We're going into overtime. It was a great interview. We enjoyed having you, and we hope to hear more from you in the future.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming, man.
Have a nice night.
All right. Bye-bye.
Good night.